All right, I got some of the bells and whistles, but not all the bells and whistles today. Since I'm
Some technical difficulties around the holiday
since
season.
I'm out of power, I could figure out where where the NUC Sports splash thing was on my phone. So I could bring that across, but
We're good. We'll
um,
make it work.
we'll make it work. Today we have a great guest on. We've been really rolling. We got it. Now that the seasons are coming to an end, we're really starting to get a wide variety of guests on. Our next guest, they're playing for the state championship. What is Tuesday, right? Yeah, Tuesday.
Tuesday night.
Um, yep,
MetLife.
in formerly known as Giants Stadium, now what? I don't even know what they call it now, but I just
MetLife
call it
Stadium,
Giants
brother.
Stadium.
MetLife.
Yeah, MetLife. Yeah, I just call it Giants Stadium. So that's I like to date myself.
All I
Um,
did was shift it one way to another, so we're good.
that's exactly right. So we're gonna bring him on, Brian Murray. He was a coach for many years, coached in college, coached for the last 19 years at DePaul. But his big role, and we're going to talk a lot about it, and it's great timing because there's a lot of chaos going in this space. His big role has really been in helping the athletes at DePaul Catholic with recruiting, reaching out to college coaches, and really managing a lot of behind the scenes stuff for DePaul Catholic. And they've been a powerhouse program for quite a while now, under now, two different coaches, and they're playing for the state championship, like we said on Tuesday. I think he's going to have a lot of great stuff to share. You're going to have to bear with me on my end of it because of my technical difficulties. For some reason, I didn't invest in a $5 thing that holds it in the air conditioning, so I don't have to worry about moving my phone. But Coach Murray this is going to be a great, like, hang on to your seats. We're going to talk about a lot of things. And what I know about Coach Murray, he's not going to hold back. So we're going to really have a great conversation about the whole recruiting process, transfer portal, you name it, and really what's going on in today's game. Let's bring him to the stage. All right, Coach Murray, great to have you on today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Coach, man, thanks, man. Appreciate you going out of your way. I know it's a crazy week. Try to get prepared with the holiday, and man, you're one of the few teams still playing, so really appreciate it.
We're fortunate. We really are to be playing at this point. We don't take it for granted. Every year is a new challenge, and every week is a different battle. So we're happy,
especially playing that schedule.
Yeah. I want to dive into it because I know you probably have a lot on your mind with respect to this process. Obviously, Coach D works with kids at Vianney as well. I obviously run now. I coached for 19 years. Now running the 7-on-7 club. I've done NUC Sports for now almost 20 years, and the radical changes. I mean, from the time I got into it, and you remember, it was DVDs, and we could send it out to coaches. And listen, you could have a conversation with a coach, okay, an actual conversation. Where today it's links, texting, DMs, right? Hoping a prayer in some cases, right? And when I say that, I'm not saying it facetiously. I'm saying it because I work with a lot of kids. Obviously, you guys work with a lot of kids and guys that we're friends with. So it's hard to get a hold of in some cases, right? So, and it's not their fault. It's the system. The system has a lot to do with this. So I'm really excited to get you on today. First, I really like to dive in recruiting from your standpoint, DePaul Catholic, and start like kind of at the basics, right? How you guys deal with recruiting and how you deal with it. And then we could really expand on to what's happening with your own players first and then go from there.
So what we do hasn't really, or my process with the kids hasn't really changed. We start before you even get there. As soon as you're enrolled, we build your academic schedule, according to your abilities, but also we build it with the NCAA requirements in mind first and foremost. And then, we have a meeting every summer with or spring with the incoming freshmen and their parents and kind of walk them through how this process goes, what it entails, and how it's changing. And it's changed. it's changing on the fly pretty much right now. I'm not a big fan of the portal for a couple of reasons. The main reason is if I'm a college guy, and I've been told this about 20 times now, I'm going to have a class of 18. Well, I'm taking 14 guys that are ready out of the portal, and I'm taking 4 high school guys.
Yeah.
So that's not good. That's not good.
Listen, that's the precipice of the whole conversation. So the portal, the early parts of the portal, and it's a week away from being blown out to Division I.
Yeah.
Okay, a little more than a week away. But the first part with FCS, and originally first the Ivies, right? You could just see with just the Ivies that have come out, the amount of kids, and now it's expanding out to some more of the FCS. Just what's come out and what's happened. Almost all high school recruiting, other than guys that low-hanging fruit, meaning guys that they already had a very, very large interest in, just need to maybe see a couple more things. Maybe they're still pulling the trigger on. But now it's all shifted immediately. Everything's about, and this is just the beginning. FCS Division II players, like I see players from Gannon that are picking up offers. And me and Derek have talked about this. It's baseball, single A, double A, triple A, major leagues, right? That's what we're talking about now, and college sports.
Yeah,
and these guys are moving up. So you already see with the transfer portal. I did a little thing, like I've done a lot of these little short videos because so many kids are like, parents. I could only imagine what you're dealing with because you guys are a very high level program, but everybody's confused. Okay, nobody really understands. And if you're a person in mine, in your age group, meaning not to age us at all, Coach Murray, but like in our age group where I'm saying if you have kids, right? So let's say you have a 15-year-old kid and you're in our age group and you're used to a different process maybe when you played or and now it's completely thrown out of whack. I've had guys that, I'm not kidding this, guys who were superstars at Division I, they played in arena, maybe played at low-level pro, like a year or so in pros, that are trying to figure it out with their own kids and are mind-boggled by it all, right? So, but the transfer portal primarily, the effect it's had on high school recruits, basically what I said is, if you're, especially the big schools, if you're not ready-made at a high school, you're going to struggle to get recruited at a FBS Power 5 level.
Absolutely.
Okay? It starts to change a little bit as you go down each level, but at a Power 5 level, it's going to be very hard if you're not legitimately a ready-made guy, other than maybe a couple of positions, but a ready-made guy ready to step in and possibly compete. Doesn't mean you'll win the job, but possibly compete right away. So they know that, like, if number 1 goes down or if number 2, like, you could come in and go.
This guy's good to go.
So what's your thoughts on all of it? I really just want to hear your thoughts on this because it's mind-blowing how it's all happening.
So I think, like, for us, I mean, we have a certain number of guys that are offerable still, which is great. But where they may have been 20 or 30 offers, now they're maybe 10, which is fine.
Maybe.
You only pick one school, and there's, that's great. But it's that next tier kid, the kid that would have had 5 to 10 offers, and looking at an ACC school or, Conference USA or a MAC school or something, that guy's now pushed further back. And it's hard pill to swallow as a parent because a lot of our kids, they've been around us for a long time, or they've had siblings. And they're like, well, when my brother was here, it wasn't like this. Well, things have changed. And it's unfortunate because you're going to end up having, it's trickle down, right? So those guys that would have had, 5 or 10 offers, then get bumped down to FCS. And then those guys that would have had the FCS are now getting bumped down. And then that guy is getting bumped. So everybody's kind of getting bumped down a little bit.
It's a domino effect.
Yeah. So it's hard. I still think we're able to place everybody somewhere.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think they're going to be able to, they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt like they used to. Like, hey, I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to sit him for 2 years and develop him. And then I'm going to play him for 2 years, or sit him for 3 years. We're going to develop him. I don't think that's happening less and less.
Absolutely.
And they'd rather somebody else develop you somewhere. And if you pop,
come get you.
We'll find you, come find me, whatever it is. And you hit the portal and then you pick up your big offer. And, the kid's staying out of school for 4 or 5 years, the same school now, few and far between. We have a running back by us that in any other time of recruiting is probably a 20 offer guy. Now he's got 10 good offers. He's probably a 20 offer kid, and you don't, it's hard conversations to have.
And his uncle's a college coach.
He is.
Right.
He
so
is.
That makes it it makes it even more mind-boggling, right? So
yeah, and listen, I'm still able to get guys on the phone. Not so much the younger guys that are out on the road, because they're all about their phone, but some of the guys that were coming up when you and I were first starting out and everything, and now they're head coaches. Well, I still got their numbers, so I still bother them.
Right.
And I can still talk. Those guys will still pick up, most of them. Some of them big time me now, but most of them will pick up. And
that's how you've made it, man. When you're getting big time, you made it.
Right. They literally feel bad. Like if you talk to them, they're like, look, it's a broke system and we have to play it the way it's set up now. It's not that we don't want your players or we don't like them, but I have to be able to compete and win my conference and win the recruiting battles now. Right. And, and play, get to the playoffs or whatever it is. So if you're not, in that 1% that they're going to take, chances are you may have to start off somewhere else to get to where you really want to be.
It's also, the system was built one way, right? It was built in a certain structure around college. That was what made football unique around high school and around college. Very different than any other sport that you have out there, where it wasn't as much the club system, right? But now, quote unquote, and this is not obviously entirely true, but colleges are now the higher levels are a business, almost like a pro club, right? Top tier high schools are like almost like a minor league, and I'm talking top tier. I'm not talking, where I went to high school, Saddlebrook High School. We still hope to field a team, okay? But that's different. It's still basics, but they're getting weeded out too. So they're losing players completely. Yeah. They may not even have a program half the time, which is sad in its complete self. But like at the top programs at high school level, they have to have a system of and a plan of how they want to do things. Just like obviously you have a plan for all your players, and it's a fractured version of what you see in like European soccer, where like they all start in one club and they go all the way through.
Yep.
But instead of going like I played for Manchester United from the time I'm 12 in juniors, and then I go to 15, maybe I'm almost a pro, and then 21, maybe I'm a pro, and we're going from place to place, jumping around, and dealing with so many different coaches. Even in high school, sometimes you have kids that transfer a couple of times, and the continuity is very difficult. I think overall, like I saw Tom Brady say, and I thought about this, right? How he said like the NFL stuff is not as good.
Mediocrity.
I think it starts way back down, because if you're getting coached by 50 million different people over the course of your career, I mean, how do you even know what's right? You know what I mean? How do you know? You go from one coach. They let's say you're a running back. They're a zone system. Then you have maybe a group that's more along the line of specific holes where they run through. You go to a different place, and so you're learning multiple different systems. You're getting educated on everything and being an expert at nothing, right? So, um, what what is it about? Like, what is it about what we're doing? Because I don't want to only bash it, but what is it about we're doing that there's like a major positivity towards going forward? And then what are some of the things that you think are just like, we like, I don't know. Is there a chance to change it? Because once the cat's out of the bag, I don't know if you can, but you'd like to see massaged at least.
So, a lot of the kids we deal with are told how good they are from the time they hit the field. They're 6 years old, and they have a social media page saying they're the number one receiver in the country in the class of 2029 or whatever it is. But so that's a problem, because that kid is constantly. So now this kid's name and abilities are out there, and now you have a million people clamoring to get this kid. Well, you should come to this regional Pop Warner team, or you should come to this team. You should go to use this trainer, use that trainer, and by the time they get to us, some of them, the ego is so blown out of proportion. You have to like chop them down, sit the parent down, chop the parent down too, and get them back to ground zero and say, listen, here's how it works for real. I don't know, I don't know what the guy in your youth program is telling you that, you're going to have 80 offers at the end of freshman year because you played on his Pop Warner team, you traveled here, traveled there, and you train with so-and-so. I mean, that's not the case. You really have to come into, as a parent and a player coming into high school, you really have to come into it having a level head. You have to be able to weather the storm. It's going to be a long process, and there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. And where we are, we coach you hard, but we don't ever let you leave feeling bad about yourself. So we want you to feel good when you go home. You come back the next day, you're ready to go. But you have to have this long-term outlook, and you have to also be realistic in, I may not be an Ohio State guy. I may not be a Rutgers guy. You may not be a Fordham guy. You may be William Patterson or a Montclair State guy, and that's fine. But everybody's thinking when they come in with all this hype behind them, I'm Division I, and then by their sophomore year, if they're not a starter, they leave. Nobody wants to wait their turn anymore, or really, push themselves to beat the guy in front of them. So we're cognizant of that, and we try to create, competition within our team between position groups and things. But the real tough thing, I think, is the reality. When the reality hits that, hey, I can't play at this school.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's turned around. They don't know what they're doing there, and they transfer somewhere else. And then, they don't know what they're doing there, and they transfer somewhere else. Maybe you're just not that good. And that falls on us too, as high school coaches in our league. Now recruiting is legal, I guess, or whatever they're saying. So you're out and you're talking to people, and you're talking to kids, and you really have to get to know the parents. Is their philosophy in line with your program's philosophy? Are they going to be supportive of you coaching their kid hard if they're coming from a place where they've been told how great they are all the time?
Right.
So that we're really selective with who we bring in. And transfers, we're not a big transfer school. It's maybe one or two, maybe a year, if that. Sometimes it's none. The thing with transfers is, from my perspective, you take too many, and they're never really truly bought into your program, especially if they're late in the game. They're a junior coming in or a senior transfer, which is tough. they're never fully bought into your program or your process and your system. They don't understand your culture, and it becomes more disruptive to the chemistry that you've built and the culture that you've built in your program. So we're pretty selective with that, and
I think that's a huge point, right? Like that's very important because, you know, everybody wants to talk transfers within the high school world itself. And, you know, that's all great and grand, but, you know, you got to look at it like it's got to fit the mold as to what your program is. I mean, you know, that can cause one bad apple can cause a whole slew of stuff that doesn't just affect your program when that kid is, you know, leaves. It may trickle for a couple years after just because you put yourself in such a bad situation. So you really got to recruit the entire, you know, and now it's not just mom and dad, right? Now it's who knows, could be, you know, street agents or whoever, the NIL guy. Now it's their trainer, right? That's in their ear all the time. So that's not the right fit or this or that. You got to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, you want to get a relationship with the kid and the family, and then you find out there's an uncle, there's a trainer, there's the 7-on-7 coach that wants him to go to school B because he thinks whatever. And so there's a lot of different dynamics involved in it. And you know, we've learned by trial and error. We've been
you did. Yeah, you did
a bunch of times. You know, you take not a bad kid, but you just take a guy that doesn't fit.
Yeah, he does. He just doesn't fit your culture. You know, Shiano talks about it at Rutgers all the time. Like he doesn't, you know, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. It's got to be the right star that fits into our, you know, universe.
I'm more interested in our program, and I'll speak for Nick. You know, we want guys that are tough. They're physically and mentally tough. They don't, you know, they're not. Their goal is an offer, right? But they're not chasing it to the point where that's all they care about. They care about the team. They're selfless, and you know, you really got to look, and it's tough. You know, at public school, you get who you get. And if you're in a good town, if you're in, you know, Whiteclaw, Franklin Lakes, you're getting those kids and they're coming and that's it. And they've played together and there's continuity already. We're piecing this thing together every single year. And you got to make sure all the pieces fit, right? So your freshmen you got to make sure the guys you're bringing in as freshmen, they mesh well with the sophomores and the juniors, and, you know, not so much the seniors because they're on their way out, but you have to make sure there's continuity and likeness between all those classes, and it's a difficult thing to do. And that's the same as college. You know, colleges have to do the same thing. Hey, I need a D tackle. I'm in the portal. This is the best guy available, but, you know, he's got a DWI. He's been fighting people, and he was suspended, and he failed the drug test. Like, is that the guy you want to bring in no matter how good he is? Right. Some guys will no matter what.
Some guys will take them.
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things that I think are really interesting. So now the North Jersey parochials in particular have done a fantastic job of not just the players they bring in are, for the most part, the right kind of kids and the kids that could do a really good job. Everybody makes mistakes, but for the most part, really good. But what I've noticed is, and here's the other thing, I think you guys do a really great job, and I have not seen this, just being someone that observes a lot of the programs around the state. Like, when you have multiple good players, you do a fantastic job of figuring out how to get everybody involved on the field. Playing as many players as you think are worthy, right? So I think that and you guys do this. I think, you know, Bergen Catholic, St. Peter's Prep, a lot of the schools in North Jersey parochials do a really good job with that. I think what you guys do is not the norm around the country. Just so you know, a lot of places, and I think it's maybe.
I lost him.
Let's see if we get him back.
So
now listen, I'll speak for him. You know what he's saying, right? Like, so he's talking about, look how you guys develop your guys using, whether it's playing multiple groupings on offense or defensive packages, right? Or getting guys involved in special teams, even from a young age, right? Like maybe they're sophomores and now all of a sudden, hey, bud, you got to go play specials, right? But it's that core group of guys, kind of moving forward where if you can continue to keep those guys motivated in terms of, hey, man, you're really playing a role, right? Like whether it might not be the role you want right now, right? But I promise you, showing you can play on special teams or showing you can do these certain things, that's going to help you in the long run, get a scholarship moving forward, because these guys want to take guys that can do multiple things. So now let's put some of that on tape, and now we can kind of go from there. And that's pretty much what I think he's talking about in terms of that.
Sorry to jump in. I don't know what happened there, but that's what I get for being in a parking lot. But yeah, so what did I found is that, like, you guys really are conscious of making sure that you do the best job you can as far as trying to figure out guys that are worthy to get on the field. High school coaching outside of a lot of the top parochials has suffered a lot for various different reasons, in the public school. And a lot of it has to do with what kind of person they want to have, how the school systems are today. Like, listen, I have my kid in parochial school for elementary school. There's certain reasons why I am doing that. Okay. And listen, I was a public school guy. So,
right.
And then growing up, I used to say I would never send my kid to parochial school ever, and that's kind of how I was. But the world has changed, right? And I think that's affected some of the things. Now, I don't know about every other state, but like in New Jersey, it's affected it somewhat, right? Outside of the parochial schools. Now, there are some public schools that do a great job. Ramapo, you brought up, right? Toms River North, down in South Jersey, does a great. Yeah. There are Old Japan where I've been like an analyst for that. They do a great job. There are programs that do a great job, but there's a distinct have and have nots outside of the parochial world, right? And I think that fosters a lot of antsiness. So if they come to you, you guys are figuring out if it's a marriage both between the family and your school to bring them into your program. Whereas some of these other programs, it probably isn't a fit for various reasons. They're stuck with a guy, the player's stuck with the school stuck with the player. Then all of a sudden they start to panic. And sometimes the player is good, but is a wrong fit for that system. And that's the only, like, I think if someone has the wrong mentality as far as, I grew up with a father, that not my father, but I'm saying like a kid that was in my town. Father was crazy. No matter, you couldn't do nothing right. The guy would, no matter what this kid did, his father was mad, and the kid was a good player, ruined him. But outside of those kind of guys, when you're not the right fit for a system, but you're a pretty good player, like, what do players do in that situation? Because these parents do feel the pressure, right? Like, they do feel they decided to put their kids with trainers for years, and they've helped their kid get to a certain level. They do feel the pressure, and they don't understand the recruiting system at all. What's your advice from that standpoint?
So, I mean,
I know it's a tough one.
In our program, listen, we don't have 150 guys in our team, but if you get to your sophomore year and we're seeing that it's probably just not going to happen for you here, what you're looking for, we'll have that conversation with the player and the parent, because they're investing in us and they're expecting a return on that investment. So the last thing we want to do is come up short or mislead families, right? So if the kid comes in with all this hype and he has an okay freshman year, and then the sophomore year, it's just hasn't matured anymore, or he topped out. He popped early, and we've all seen those guys. They run all over the youth league, and then that's it. They're done. Everybody caught up to them, and so we have those conversations. And not that we don't want those guys, because a lot of times those guys are really great program guys, and they're your hardest workers. But you have to be honest with the parent. They're never going to be the featured back. They're not going to start. They're not going to be a starting corner here. They're not big enough uh, uh, to to hold up for a whole season as a three technique. They're too undersized. They're not athletic enough. Whatever it is, and then they have a decision to make. And I'll tell you, it's interesting to see. Um, Recently, we've had a family, and we spoke to them exactly what I just said, and they said, "Well, no, we came here to compete, so we're staying, and we're going to keep competing." And it is what it is. If my son is a guy, he's a guy. If he's not, well, then I know that he's been coached well, he's been developed as best as he can, and we'll figure it out where he ends up from here. And that's a kind of refreshing outlook, and that's not the norm. The norm is usually, well, we're leaving, and you guys know what you're talking about. Okay, hard feelings, but our conference or league, whatever you want to call the parochials. What I think the misconception is that there's this abundance of resource, and it's unlimited money to do things and put your players out all over the place. And that's not the case. And that's why your guys get recruited. You have all these resources. The reality is, no, we work, year round. In season, it's 7 days a week, and out of season, it's probably 5 or 6, and it's a good amount of hours in the off season every day. And now these coaches all they're either teaching or they have, run a company. You have a regular job that you're doing your time at. And then it's another 7-8 hours after that you're putting in. It's a lot of work. And it's a lot of building relationships on the front end and the back end. So the front end, you're building relationships with kids you're trying to bring into your program. On the back end, you're building relationships with colleges because you want to keep them coming through. The one thing I will say about the non-publics is, it may be like this in the public realm. I just don't know, but we support each other in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
If Derek has a guy at Vianney, and I know a coach is coming in, and he's looking for a guy like that, I'm going to say, hey, man, call Derek down at Vianney. He has a guy, and this is the kid's name. Make sure, I would check him out. So we exchange information of who's coming around, who's been in your school, who's not been in, what players we have, that are recruitable at certain levels with each other. Not every school. Some schools like to stay on their own, but the majority of us are pretty pretty good with each other in that aspect. And I think the outlook or the premise is that if we work together to help move all of our kids to the next level, that's building our brand, our conference, the non-public conference of football in the state, and it only makes our product better. And every time we do that, it increases our chances of getting more kids. We're all tuition-driven institutions, so we need enrollment. You need tuition. That's how it runs.
Mm-hmm.
But it allows us to expand. It keeps all of our programs at the forefront of everybody's mind when they're talking about New Jersey high school football, and that helps in the recruiting too. It's not unusual for us to see when recruiting is open to see 100 guys a week come through, and that's all levels. I mean, I'm talking from
right.
3 on up, or now the NAIA schools have been coming around New Jersey now, which never been the last.
No, that's always been like a Midwest type thing.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is if you really want to play, there's somewhere you can end up playing after high school. We will find you a home. But the way our system is built, we're trying to map you for 40 years, not just 4. So we want to make sure that if you know what you want to study, definitely like where you're going, is that degree worthy, hold some weight out in the job market? Is there alumni support there good? Is there internship programs good. Like, so we try to like walk everybody through that. And our higher end players, especially, they're pulled by so many different guys with so many different
crazy.
promises of stuff. You really got to boil it down to, all right, I know you're going to the NFL and you're going to have a 15-year career, and that's great. But the odds are you're not. So what's the plan? Like, what do you want to do? And here's the schools you're looking at that can help you do that. And here's the ones that are really good at helping you do that when you get out. So some of it, not that we're steering kids to anybody specific, but we are trying to make sure it's the right fit academically, long-term for our players once they leave us. When you get to the lower level, the D2, D3, I think it gets a little bit easier because the schools are more regional, and you kind of know, like, all right, this is a pretty good one, or you're taking the right classes to get your degree. Or sometimes those FCS schools, man, you're just taking, and I'm not going to name schools, but I've had guys at schools where they get to senior year and they don't even know what their degree is in. They're just like, what? I don't even know what that means. Like, what is this? I'm like,
So what are we doing?
How do you so let's say a kid thinks he's going to go a certain level, and then he gets like an FCS offer, or maybe has a D2 offer, and how do you have that conversation? Because the biggest thing I've seen is that, like, guys don't, even this happens even with Division I offers, they don't commit to a school, right? So let's say they have a few offers, they decide to wait and hold out for maybe quote unquote something better, right? Don't commit to school. They realize that more is not going to come in, and now they want to choose a school, or they can't go back to the school. How do you, like, that timeline? And that's a tricky thing. Like, how do you advise them on when to pull the trigger, when to say, hey man, I'm just a D2 guy, like that's just how it is. How do you help them do that? Because that I've seen is a very difficult thing as well.
It's tough. It's a lot of communication with the colleges on, how long are you willing to wait? I think you're the school he wants to go to, but he's waiting on school X, or he thinks he's going to get this. We know he's not, but we think, and they'll give us a time frame of, hey, we're going to need to know by X, and then we communicate that to the player and the parent. But we're also brutally honest with them, like, okay, Ohio State is not coming. It's not happening. You have what you have. You're probably maxed out. Maybe one will trickle in late if somebody gets dropped
right, if
somewhere.
Somebody drops out or something crazy happens.
This is what you have. This is what you have to focus on. Now, which ones are we taking off that you don't like? Which ones do you like? And then we try to kind of get them in order, of where they are with each school. But then it's also, then we look at that and we break that down. They have the degree, the major you want, yes. What's their, situation in the program? How long has the staff been there? What's the record look like? What's this, because there's change is inevitable at the position coach level, but you also want to look like, hey, this guy's only won 3 games
right
a year for the last 5 years. Like, chances are
he's not
here. Do you still like this school? Like, that's going to change. The head coach is going to change. Position coach is going to change. So we really got to, is it the school, the environment, the players that are in the program? Is that what you have to really focus on all of those things. But the bottom line is it comes down to communication. You really have to be honest with your parents and your players. And sometimes it's a difficult thing to do, definitely. And sometimes it hurts. They've worked tirelessly to get this ultimate goal of a Division I offer, and it's not happening. And you kind of have to tell them, listen, you're in this 7% in the country, 7%,
and that's all levels, man. Football. That's all levels.
You're going to go play at the next level. I know it's not where you want it to be.
You're going to get school for free.
Yeah, you're still at this you're in this small percentage of kids in the country that are going to be able to do this. That's pretty special. And I'll be quite honest with you, we've had guys go to some private Division III schools that when you add in the grant and aid and academic money and
More
everything,
money.
they paid less to go to some high end, academic Division III schools than they did to go to high school. So you can't write those schools off. Oh, it's D3. Go
right,
watch
the NESCAC, like the NESCAC.
Yeah.
And
It's where we're at right now. You know what I mean? These
Go
guys,
watch a game.
Yeah.
Go watch a game because I'll tell you what.
See how much you love that atmosphere.
Yeah.
That's, I mean.
And it's good football. Like that's what they fail to realize. You turn on ESPN, you see big time football. Oh, wow. Well, go watch, St. Anselm, or go watch Trinity and the NESCAC, or go watch Union or Hobart or one of these smaller schools. And I promise you, you're going to see good football, and you're going to be competing against really good players. And that's the other misconception within our league. Everybody goes D1. That's not the truth. If you really look, you hear about that 1% that go big time. But if you really analyze it, DePaul, Bergen, Joes, Bosco, a lot of those kids, they're going Division III. It's just the love, the passion they have for the game. They want to keep playing, and they go to some really great places. There's a lot of really great schools that they can go to, and those guys are recruiting high school people. They want high school players. The Division III guys, they're in the portal, and they're poking around. But for a guy to go from FBS or FCS to drop all the way down is not likely. So they're hungry for high school kids, and they're getting better players because of this.
Yes.
And the thing that I think players now, because you got to take advantage of if you have an opportunity to go somewhere. One of the beauties of the portal on the flip side is if you go Division II and somehow you develop into this mega star, right? And you're seeing it. That's where, if you look at the good side of the portal, I guess the good side of it is if you're a low level guy, for some reason you develop late or they missed you or whatever happens, there is an opportunity. You're not stuck like in the old days. You're really stuck at where you were.
Right.
You could actually move up, and that is an opportunity there. Now, that's obviously a small percentage of people, but there is that opportunity. And to me, that's like, if you look at the flip side, where's the positive? That's a positive. Sometimes guys slip through the cracks. Sometimes there's a 6'5" kid that's only 180 pounds in high school. All of a sudden, blooms late is now 225. Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I think that's the good side of it. NIL. I'm curious because I don't know at all. Has that affected? I don't know if that affects you guys, any of your players at all. I wasn't sure.
It's here.
Okay.
It's here. It's a part of at least a part of where we are in our segment of high school football. Now, the extent of it, I don't know. These guys get eat clean, bro, or something like it. Which is great. Hey,
No, I get it.
I'll take it.
It's just another component that we have to be aware of, that we have to try to manage. There's rumors of high school NIL collectives being started, which is
really,
yeah. And I don't know if that will come to fruition.
I want a Shake Shack NIL.
Yeah, me too. So it's just another component. There's so many things that these kids and their parents have to manage, but now the high school coach has to manage too, and it's really wild to see how this is all evolving, and it requires you to, the school's not giving you any more money to hire more people, right? That's never happening. So you have to find guys that really love being involved and want to help out, and maybe not make so much money or any money to help you manage all of these different components. And I'll say Nick does a good job of, all right, well, Murray and I are going to handle this, and you two are handling this, and things
the delegation.
Like that. Yeah, so he's pretty good with that, and that helps. But I just can't stress how much time it takes. It's never ending. The season will end next Tuesday, either on a high note or a low note, and we hope it's a high note. But there's no time to waste, because Wednesday you might take a breather, and then Thursday you're back at it. You're looking at who's coming in, who you're bringing in to fill your freshman class, what colleges are coming, who's where is so and so with his GPA, what's this guy, who's got an official, who's doing this, who's doing that, and you try to manage all of that and keep it going. And we do year round. I mean, we're with each other as far as the coaches. It's year round. I mean, we have a couple guys that coach other sports or something at other places in the spring or whatever, or they have other obligations, but there's that core 4 or 5 coaches on our staff.
You're in there every day.
You see them more than you see your family. And it's a lot of it's just a lot of time and effort to put these things together. It doesn't come easy. And I think, you look around, and the question is always, well, if I'm investing in your school, I'm investing in your program, I'm sending my kid there, like, are you going to guarantee it's going to pay off?
No.
Well,
No.
what type of payoff are you looking? If you want me to guarantee you're going to Rutgers? No. You want me to guarantee your kid's going to be developed for the next 4 years, not only as a football player, but as a person, as a student, and he's going to leave here with a good moral compass. He's going to leave here with a good work ethic. He's going to leave here a better football player, and he's going to leave here being able to handle adversity throughout his life. That I can guarantee you, as long as
he does his part, right? And you got everything,
and he does his end, and you guys support us on the back end of what we're trying to instill too. And it's really just finding those like-minded people and individuals and piecing them all together. And sometimes that's a challenge, and other times it's not. It just kind of happens,
The collective that just blew my mind that there's possibly being collective. I mean, I could you remember Friday Night Lights, the show, Buddy Garrity,
Yeah.
It's so basically like you got like you'll eventually have like some of these schools have Buddy Garrity's like heading up a collective. And I think of that show because obviously that was an informal, like he was an informal guy that was always advising him. But the influence that could end up having on a program, I'm not just talking about the money for getting players, because obviously that's a given. That's what ends up being part of the process. But as far as who plays, who the coach plays, who gets hired as the coach, or fired, I guess, right? That's mind blowing at high school. Like that has to be very difficult for an institution in high school, which has, I don't know what the budget is of a parochial school, but let's say the parochial school budget was 10 million or 15 million in a year. And now you have someone who literally is contributing $1 million, you know what I mean? $1 million.
Right, they're going to want some
program.
Right.
He becomes more than just Buddy Garrity, right? So, wow, that is a mind blowing thing. I couldn't even imagine how that begins to get handled. I'm sure there are people smarter than us that are trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not by us. I know that, but there's rumors of it going on or trying to get started. So we'll see what happens with that.
But
you
look,
know,
hey,
mean,
and look, and if it comes
It's
about, it comes
interesting.
about. It's kind of part of it. You roll with it and go.
It is fast. It is fascinating. It is fascinating how the world is obviously from that standpoint. For you guys and for you going forward, like what are because we've talked about like some of the great things within pro. What are the three things that you really like, or a couple of things that you really like that's going forward in football that you think are really beneficial to the kids that are really starting that are helpful, that are positive within in the sports environment?
So I think one of the biggest things, one of the biggest pluses that the state has allowed, like that evaluation period in the spring, that was a huge bonus for us, because everywhere else in the country, these guys are being evaluated in this spring evaluation period, and then here, guys were trying to show up during gym class to see you run around. Like, it just wasn't working. Where, they get to see you in the weight room, which is nice after school, but they want to see you doing football things. So I think that's been a huge benefit. We'll routinely have anywhere from 15 to 25 coaches at a clip, cycling through those spring workouts. So that's been a bonus. That's one of the positives. I'll tell you what. I think we're seeing a spike in participation in youth football where it was down. So that's a positive, because the more kids that are playing at that youth level translates into more kids playing at the high school level. And, that's not necessarily just good for us, but it's great for Saddlebrooks. It's great for Fairlawn. It's great for, small towns that were down to like 23 guys or less. So more kids that are playing. I think a lot of that concussion stuff has kind of simmered down, and parents are more agreeable to letting their kids play, and that's a great thing. I think the other thing, like, as far as the concussion thing and everything, we're all cognizant of it, and we're wearing the Guardian caps, and 7-on-7, you're wearing those. I don't know. They look like the old leather football helmet, but it's a padded thing. So we're adding things to minimize injury. I think that's a positive. I really think, some of the things that are bothering me, I think, I'll be honest with you, playing the state final on a Tuesday is a weird thing. I think the state could have done a better job on that, or figured out some alternatives. And I don't know all the moving pieces, but to play on a Monday and a Tuesday, and I'm going to imagine most parents work, so it's they have to take a day off. Which isn't always easy for some people. So I'm not really thrilled with that. I think that the transferring in high school, is going to be. Listen, you're going to have guys now. They get this one-time free transfer, so I think it's going to be a couple things are going to happen. You're going to get these guys that are at. I don't know. They're at Lakeland High School, and they catch 70 balls and have 900 receiving yards and 20 touchdowns, and then that guy may think, well, I should go to compete at a higher level high school. I should go to St. Joe's, or I should go to DePaul, or whatever. And then you're going to have it on the flip side, the guy that's at DePaul or Joe's or Bergen or wherever, and he's going into his junior year, and the writing's on the wall. He doesn't see a thing for him. Well, now he could go back. Maybe he's played some special teams on a varsity level, or he's couple reps here and there on offense, and he knows, well, I could go back to my hometown, and I can be a starter. Right. So I think that in that regard, that's a positive, for a kid to be able to go back and do that. There's there's a lot of good players. I watched more public high school football this year
Yeah.
than I've ever watched for certain reasons. And there's so many good players. Everybody's like, oh, all the good players in the program. There's a lot of good
They're
players
not.
there, man. Wayne Valley has a kid who Dave. This Brendan Immediato his kid's a great player.
Great player.
I'm a little biased.
Yeah, so am I. Right. We both.
He's a phenomenal football player.
Yep.
He would easily play in our league.
Yep.
Easily in our league. Ramapo's got the Prima and Wingfield and
the Deli guy's kid.
Yeah, Schnorbush.
Schnorbush.
Great last name, and he's phenomenal. So there's a lot of good players. There's a lot of good players out there. Colleges need to get in here and really examine what we have, because there's a lot of good players, not only just in our non-public world, but they're out there. So they gotta dig and find them. The little gems are everywhere. I would have loved to coach the Immediato kid in high school. I'm really high on him.
Yeah, no, he's a stud. He's a stud. I didn't realize he still had another year too. So, yeah,
good player.
He's a really good player. Coach, thanks so much for coming on. I mean, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. I'm glad Derek let me talk.
Bro, I told you it was your stage, bro.
Yeah, man. The insight is invaluable. You've seen things that a lot of people haven't seen. So,
listen, and don't sleep on St. John Vianney, man. Those guys are building it down there, and that's going to help strengthen our non-publics down in that area and get better competition, for everybody. Same thing, St. Thomas Aquinas. Those guys are putting it together. Obviously, Red Bank is Red Bank, and they're loaded up. But that little pocket of non-public football in New Jersey, I feel, is like on the rise. They're better every year. They're getting more kids every year. They've built out their staffs the right way, and it looks like those programs are really on the rise. So it may not just be the Big Six or whatever they call it now. I think we might be able to expand that geographically and include, a bunch of other schools here down the road, which is great.
Right. And I think that's something, that's like talking about the state. We could take a look at it and stuff like that. But I appreciate you saying that, because it's something I talk about all the time. Having been from up north, been in it, you know what I mean? It's different. And if you want to compete and do those things, like, this is kind of how it works. So, you guys have just kind of created the map to follow, and we're just kind of doing our own thing and making it happen so that we can all collectively work together and get better. It's really what it's all about.
Greg Toll created the blueprint. We're all just modifying,
just mapping it out, man.
That's true.
He got this thing rolling at another level, and then obviously Tony and Fred and those guys on the football end really were they kind of started it, and then Greg just kind of blew it up and
escalated.
Yeah, so he caused all these problems. Coach told. But but yeah, he really did. He elevated New Jersey high school football, and his contributions to it are, invaluable, because I don't think any of the programs would be where they are now had he not done what he did at his time at Bosco. So. All right, guys, I appreciate you having me.
Hey, man, good luck this week.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Catch up. Have a great Thanksgiving, fellas.
All right,
have a great one.
Talk to you soon. Thanks again, Mark.
All right, bye. That was great. Fantastic podcast. Really a lot of great information. We could probably go on for another 2 hours with that stuff.
Yeah, he's great. And he's going to tell it like it is. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to sugarcoat it, or he's not going to be like, this is the reality of it. This is how I see it. Some guys might not. This is how we've done it, and kind of just let it go,
Absolutely. I'll let it. I'm going to log us all out, because
I think you got to get out of that parking lot too.
I got to get out of that parking lot right before I become a suspect.
Yeah. Like, why has this guy been sitting here for this long?
guy's sitting here for 2 hours. What's he doing? So, all right. Well, a great podcast. And I'll talk to you a little bit later.
All right.